In this episode of the Comic Book Orange, Ivan Brandon's Viking, Deadpool has his own comic, and an interview with the Guild's Felicia Day.
I come from a land of ice and snow. I do. I come from Canada. And do you know who were the first Europeans to reach Canada? Vikings! Which is also the name of the comic that we're about to review. See how these intros come together at the end?
Ivan Brandon and Nick Kleins' Viking is a mix of crime drama with some Old Norse ultraviolence. Like Brian Wood's Northlanders, Brandon writes the characters with modern sensibilities and dialogue. The plot of vengeance and palace intrigue is as involved as great cable TV shows like The Wire and The Sopranos. That may be a problem, though. It feels so modern that if it weren't for the clothes and the swordplay, you wouldn't know it had anything to do with Vikings. Nick Klein's harsh, edgy art delivers the hard violence and shadows expected of the story, though it can get a bit muddy at times. Still, he makes great use of the extra-large pages, earning the praise heaped on the comic when it first arrived in stores. Viking may not be what you expect from a, well, Viking story, but it's a great gritty tale if you're in the mood for some bloody noir action. We give it 3.5 oranges out of 5. Also out this week, from Image comes the collected trade paperback of Phonogram 2 The Singles Club by Kieron Gillen and Jamie McKelvie. We gave the urban music fantasy 4.5 oranges, so if you missed it the first time, pick it up already! Boom Studios serves up its own tale of a badass warrior with Swordsmith assassin. Andrew Cosby and Michael Allen Nelson tell a classic samurai story of honor, though Ayhan Hayrula's art can be a bit rough. We give it 3 oranges out of 5. And hey, look! Marvel's Deadpool in his own book! Sometimes it's easy to forget he has his own series, given how frequently he cameos, guest stars, or simply takes over other characters' books. All kidding aside, for fun satirical superhero reading, it's 2.5 oranges out of 5. This week we're at Meltdown Comics in West Hollywood, California to interview Felicia Day, writer, creator, and star of The Guild. Felicia Day, actress, writer, comic writer, how do you do it?
I would say I do it because I don't have a social life. So, I mean, I do, but I have to use it very sparingly in order to get everything done and get my gaming in, which is too important, actually. But
So how did the idea to write a comic come up?
I met Scott Alley, an editor at Dark Horse, when I went to Comic-Con the first time for Dr. Horrible. And we went to dinner, and he was like, oh, do you have any ideas to do The Guild as a comic? And at the time, we had just started shooting season 2, and I was kind of in the middle of production, and I was like, no, I don't really think I have an idea to do it, and I don't want to stomp on my web series stories. So then I met him again at last year's Comic-Con, and he was like, how about it? And at the time, I kind of got the idea that I could do a semi-origin story, and he said, hey, that sounds great, let's do it. And that's how I became a comic writer.
So the timeline for the story, it actually takes place as a prequel.
Yeah, I mean, I guess an origin story is kind of grandiose for a story about people behind their computers. But I mean, I thought it would be really interesting to see how somebody like Codex gets into a video game. And it was really interesting exploring her backstory and seeing, you know, how she got into the gaming and met the Guild.
You got a great artist for this, and he really portrays the characters well. How did you find him?
So Scott Alley had to guide me a lot through some of these processes. I had met a lot of comic artists just doing conventions for the last couple of years, but he connected me with Jim Rugg. He actually did me in a penny comic, a one-off. He was able to draw me, which was kind of cool, but also it's just his style. I didn't want to go too comedic and broad with the comic. I wanted to kind of make it more indie, and I just felt like he really brought the world alive. And you know, he's doing also the in-game art and the out-of-game art, which is interesting. So he's using 2 different styles, and he's just doing such a great job. Just seeing them come to life is an amazing experience.
Do you think you're going to write more comics in the future that are non-Guild?
After going through the process of writing and learning how to write a comic and learning from all the mistakes that I made, I actually would really enjoy doing another story in the format. You know, I love fantasy and sci-fi, and you know, it's hard on a web series to be able to do that on a budget. And then writing something for TV or movies is, of course, really smart and lucrative, but you're never guaranteed seeing it on a screen or the way you want it. And the cool thing about doing a comic is that your vision gets done, and you have no limit. You know, you can have somebody flying, or you know, you can be a minotaur, and you don't have to worry about makeup.
So when can we expect a Felicia Day story arc in Buffy season 8?
Oh, well, I don't have a lot of control in that area, but the advantage I have there is that I didn't die, And in fact, Vi has been established in a couple of issues of Buffy as the head of the New York Slayers. So she's certainly out there. And New York is a disaster-prone city, as we all know. So I don't know. I could definitely see there being a crisis there that Vi would possibly live through.
For more information on Felicia Day, check out our website at feliciaday.com or follow her on Twitter as @FeliciaDay. Well, that's it for this week.
Tune in next week for an exclusive interview with Dr. Horrible writer Zach Whedon.
See you next week.
Or maybe we can connect Brian Wood and Joss Whedon and make this cool DMZ-like Slayerdom.
You should pitch that to them.
I don't think it's gonna work out.